Hey everyone, welcome to my video about the third conditional. What can you find here? Well, first, I'll explain what the third conditional is, when to use it, and what its structure is. Also, I'll tell you about the contractions that you should use if you want to sound natural, in spoken English, and what the correct pronunciation is. In the third part, there will be translations, so this is made for the Slovak learners of English. We'll be translating some third conditional sentences from Slovak into English. And finally, there is this practice part, which is for all learners of English, not only for the Slovak ones. We'll be practicing the third conditional structure in many different contexts and situations. So you've got a lot to learn and a lot to look forward to. Why the name conditional? Okay, all conditionals, whether it's first, second, or third, express a condition. This is what they all have in common. Also, there is this word if that all of them use. However, the translation of if differs. In the first conditional, it means ak in Slovak, and in the second and third conditional, it means keby. Also, another thing that all three conditionals have in common is that they consist of two parts, the if clause and the main clause. When to use the third conditional? Well, we use the third conditional to talk about past situations that did not happen. So basically, we speculate about what if in the past. I like to compare the first, second, and third conditionals to a family, where first and second conditionals are like brothers, and the third conditional is their cousin. Why? Because first and second conditionals are about present or future situations, whereas the third conditional is about past situations. Right? So yes, they do have something in common because they are all conditionals, but the first and second conditionals are about present or future, and the third conditional is different from them. That's why it's their cousin. It's about past situations. The translation of if in the third conditional is keby in Slovak. Now, the structure of the third conditional is, as usual, there is this if clause. In the if clause, we have to use logically if. And after if, you have to use past perfect. Past perfect, here you can see that it's basically head plus past participle of a verb. Past participle in regular verbs is this ed ending. For example, work, worked. And in irregular verbs is this third column that you can see in the list of irregular verbs. For example, swim. Yes, you have swim, swam, swam. So this third one, the third form of the verb is the past participle. So in the if clause, we use if and past perfect. And in the main clause, you have to use would have plus past participle is the same as here, okay? Would have plus past participle. For example, if I had woken up on time, I would have caught the train. So in the if clause, I used if plus past perfect, which is had, plus past participle of wake, which is woken. And in the main clause, I used would have plus past participle of catch, which is caught. If I had woken up on time, I would have caught the train, but I did not wake up on time, so I did not catch the train. I'm talking about a past situation that did not happen. This is a speculation about something which did not happen, so it's untrue in the past. Another example, if we had gone out, we would have stayed up all night. Again, if clause, where I used if plus past perfect. And the main clause where I used would have and the past participle stayed. So if we had gone out yesterday, we would have stayed up all night, but we did not go out, so we did not stay up all night. This is a speculation about something which did not happen in the past, so it's untrue in the past. Of course, you can swap the two clauses. So it is not a rule that a conditional sentence must start with if. You can start with the main clause. So we would have stayed up all night if we had gone out. Okay, first one is the main clause and the second one is the if clause. It's okay to swap the two clauses. So here is the structure, main clause and if clause. One example, if I hadn't spent all the money, I could have bought a holiday. So in the if clause, we use past perfect, and in the main clause, could have bought. As you can see, I use could instead of would. That's completely all right. I could have bought a holiday. That means that I am expressing possibility. Okay, I could have bought a holiday, but I didn't. Swapped structure will be I could have bought a holiday if I hadn't spent all the money, right? So I started with a main clause where I use could have plus past participle. And then I continued with the if clause. If I hadn't spent all the money, so if plus past perfect. Maybe you're asking what the difference is between would and could in the main clause. Well, let's see on these two examples. If I had had more time, I would have gone for a coffee. I would have gone for a coffee. And now, if I had had more time, I could have gone for a coffee. So I could have gone for a coffee. You can see that here it is more certain that I would have gone for a coffee. While here I could have gone, it's not so certain, okay? Maybe I would have gone for a coffee. It's something like that, yes? So could have is like a possibility, but it's not very certain. Regarding the punctuation, here is a rule that we've already learned with the first and second conditional. It's all the same because, for example, when you have a sentence that starts with the if clause and continues with the main clause, for example, if we had gone out, we would have stayed up all night. You can see that there is a comma here. But if we start with the main clause, so we would have stayed up all night, if we had gone out, if clause is second, then we do not put any comma here. So the rule is do not put a comma before the word if. Okay, next chapter is contractions and pronunciation. So contractions and pronunciation, you can see the translation in Slovak here. Let's see one sentence example. If I had woken up on time, I would have caught the train. Well, nice sentence, right? But in spoken English, nobody speaks like that. Nobody tells you, if I had woken up on time, I would have caught the train. It's too long. You have to make it shorter. So you have to use a contraction, okay? So the contraction for I had is I'd. The contraction for would have is would've. So our sentence sounds like this. If I'd woken up in time, I would have caught the train. Another example. If he had been nicer to her, he wouldn't have lost her. So the contraction of he had is he'd. The contraction of wouldn't have is wouldn't have. So our sentence will sound like this. If he'd been nicer to her, he wouldn't have lost her. You can repeat after me. If he'd been nicer to her, he wouldn't have lost her. Good. And the last example of a contraction. So the sentence is, if we had bought a lottery ticket, we could have won. The contraction of we had is we'd, and the contraction of could have is could have. So if we'd bought a lottery ticket, we could have won. Again, you can repeat after me. If we'd bought a lottery ticket, we could have won. Perfect. The translation part is made for the Slovak learners of English who are going to translate some third conditional sentences from Slovak into English. So, translate the bits. Keby som sa usilovnejšie učil, translate please. If I'd studied harder, please try to use contractions so that you can sound more natural, okay? So, if I had studied harder, contraction, if I'd studied harder, keby včera nebolo pršalo, if it hadn't rained yesterday, keby si bol býval opatrnejší, if you'd been more careful, keby som to bola vedela, if I'd known that, and now the main clauses continue, bol by som spravil skúšku. I would have passed the exam. Neboli by sme ostali doma. We wouldn't have stayed at home. You see the contraction wouldn't have, wouldn't have. We wouldn't have stayed at home. Nemal by si tú nehodu. You wouldn't have had the accident. Povedala by som ti. I would have told you. So, if I had studied harder, I would have passed the exam. If it hadn't rained yesterday, we wouldn't have stayed at home. If you'd been more careful, you wouldn't have had the accident. If I'd known that, I would have told you. Now, translate the swapped bits. Bol by som spravil skúšku. I would have passed the exam. Neboli by sme ostali doma. We wouldn't have stayed at home. Nemal by si tú nehodu. You wouldn't have had the accident. Povedala by som ti. I would have told you. So these were the main clauses. Now the if clauses. Keby som sa usilovnejšie učil. If I'd studied harder. Keby včera nebolo pršalo. If it hadn't rained yesterday. Keby si bol býval opatrnejší. If you'd been more careful. Keby som to bola vedela. If I'd known that. So now swapped sentences or clauses. I would have passed the exam if I'd studied harder. We wouldn't have stayed at home if it hadn't rained yesterday. You wouldn't have had the accident if you'd been more careful. I would have told you if I'd known that. Now translate the complete sentences. Keby si mi bol zavolal, bola by som prišla. If you'd called me, I would have come over. Nemol by sa stratil, keby mal mapu. He wouldn't have gotten lost if he'd had a map. If he'd had a map, don't forget to put there also the had, okay? Had. If he'd had a map. Mohla si byť na čas, keby si bola šla autom. You could have been on time if you'd gone by car. See, instead of would, I used could because it's possibility. In the past, that did not happen. You could have been on time if you had gone by car, but you didn't go by car, so you were not on time. Speculation. Keby som toho nezjedla tak veľa, nebolo by mi v noci tak zle. If I hadn't eaten so much, I wouldn't have been so sick at night. Finally, the practice part, where I'll give you several different situations and your job is to speculate how things could have or would have been different if those things hadn't happened. Let's see some examples, all right? So speculate. What if it hadn't happened? For example, I was hungry, so I ate 3 slices of bread. But if I hadn't been hungry, I wouldn't have eaten 3 slices of bread. Okay? So you're speculating on something that did not happen. Another example, she fell down because the ground was icy. But she wouldn't have fallen down if the ground hadn't been icy. Now you are going to try it, okay? So speculate. What if it hadn't happened? I didn't buy the sofa because I didn't have money, but I would... Please continue. Let's check if you were right. I would have bought the sofa if I had had money, or if I'd had money. So first is the main clause. I would have bought the sofa, or I would have bought the sofa. And the second is the if clause. If I'd had money. So if plus past perfect. Another example. You made the mistake, so you lost your job. But speculate if you... Continue, please. Okay, let's check. If you hadn't made the mistake, you wouldn't have lost your job. Good. Okay, another 2 examples. So speculate. They had too much work, so they couldn't go out. But if they... Continue. Let's see. If they hadn't had so much work, they could have gone out. We didn't enjoy our trip because the weather was bad, but we... Let's see. We would have enjoyed our trip if the weather hadn't been bad. Very well. And here is one more, but I'll just click through it and you can pause it if you want to. Now in the last part, you're gonna tell a story based on pictures. So what if? It means you are going to speculate about things that happened and you're gonna speculate how it could have been different. Let's see. So make third conditional sentences. Well, imagine this. Yesterday, I went shopping. Here you can see that. And when I got out of the store, I met my friend Lily. But now I'm going to speculate. So if I not go shopping yesterday, I not meet my friend Lily. Can you make a third conditional sentence? Try. Okay, let's check if you were right. If I hadn't gone shopping yesterday, I wouldn't have met my friend Lily. Very well. Now, how does the story continue? So I met my friend Lily and she invited me to her party. But what if I not meet my friend Lily, she not invite me to her party? Make a third conditional sentence. Now, let's see. If I hadn't met my friend Lily, she wouldn't have invited me to her party. Good. Let's go on. So Lily invited me to her party and I got a little drunk. But what if she not invite me to her party? I not get drunk last night. Make a sentence. If she hadn't invited me to her party, I wouldn't have gotten drunk last night. Very good. Well, this is the outcome of the party. So I got drunk and then in the morning I was a little sick. But what if I not drink so much, I not throw up in the morning? A third conditional sentence, please. If I hadn't drunk so much, I wouldn't have thrown up in the morning. Right. Then I was sick, so I did not go hiking in the afternoon. But what if? Make a third conditional sentence. Let's see. If I hadn't been sick, I would have gone hiking, but I didn't. So I didn't go hiking, and that's why I did not see any forest animals, any deer, you know. But what if? So again, make a sentence. So if I'd gone hiking, I could have seen some deer. See, I used could have seen some deer because it would have been a possibility, okay? So maybe I would have seen some deer. That's why I can say I could have seen some deer. And finally, I didn't see any deer because I didn't go hiking and I didn't take a photo of it. But what if? So I see some deer, I can take a photo of it, make a sentence. If I'd seen some deer, I could have taken a photo of it. And that's pretty much it. You nailed it. Very good job. Well, this was a video on third conditional. My name is Miriam. I'm from Language Studio Euphema. And if you liked this video, if you learned something on this subject, please subscribe or like it or share it. And until next time, bye.